owner of the SR aircraft, VK Singh, speaking with the media. There were 5 people on board, including Ajit Pawar, Sumit Kapoor, the pilot, yet Shambhavi Pathak, as he mentioned, Pinky Mali, Ajit Pawar, all of them on that jet.
Absolutely. So, Vidip Jadhav, Pinky Mali, who is the cabin crew, Captain Shambhavi Pathak, Captain Sumit Kapoor, and Ajit Pawar. Now we know for a fact that there were a total of 5 people on board. For all of our viewers who are just joining us, the big story of the day is the unfortunate passing away of Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Ajit Pawar, in a crash that took place early morning today at 8:46 a.m. in Baramati for the local body elections that were taking place. Ajit Pawar was on his way to campaign for those elections. He took off at 8:10 a.m. from Mumbai in a private aircraft along with 4 other people on board. And at 8:46 a.m., those images on your screen, that is the CCTV footage of the exact moment when that crash took place. And at a little after 8:46 a.m., you can see this huge ball of fire go up, and that is when his aircraft crashed in Baramati, 5 to 6 kilometers away from the airport. Now remember, this is an airport where civilian aircraft do not land. It is only used for private aircraft landing, and it's an extremely busy airport. Despite that, because Vedika, this is extremely politically sensitive. It is the pocket borough of the Pawar family. You had a number of flights that used to come in, and especially in election season, the last 2 years, beginning the end of 2024 to now, you have only seen election after election happening in Maharashtra. So a lot of activity taking place over there. As we speak, you have again a bevy of people who are on their way to Baramati. Vasudha Venugopal, NDTV's political editor, also joining us now on this broadcast. We ran images, and let's try and bring those pictures up again on screen. We were talking about Sharad Pawar, Vasudha, who has just reached Baramati. The fact that 66-year-old Ajit Pawar was believed to be the natural inheritor of the legacy of Sharad Pawar, somebody who would take over the reins of the party in its entirety, not just his faction, but talks of how a rapprochement would take place, that the family would eventually come together, and Ajit Pawar would be the natural leader. Ajit Pawar in Maharashtra, Supriya Sule in Delhi. For Sharad Pawar in particular, what is the meaning of what happened today?
Well, you know, Padmaja, in the morning we did see visuals of everyone was associated with NCP going to Sharad Pawar's house. And remember, he was also in Mumbai. And of course, they went to Supriya Sule's residence, 6 Janpad, and they, you know, trotted out all the logistics of the entire thing. And it looks to me that this is a political earthquake in the state of Maharashtra, because NCP is a party that has worked very hard to have its bastion in Western Maharashtra. It's a party of sugar mills and cooperatives. But now the focus is back on the old man of the party, the youngest, the person who became the chief minister at a very young age, Sharad Pawar. The focus is back on him. And yes, he will drive the campaign of the party. He will drive the party. It's too early to talk about that. Yeah. But yes, we also would see people like Rohit Pawar and of course Supriya Sule also playing the role of the matriarch that she's really good at, maybe bringing in the generations together and possibly getting cousins together. Yes, this is a family that has always stuck together despite political differences, although Ajit Pawar was the first Pawar to actually leave the alliance officially and go join the NDA. But it's been quite a tragic tragedy that unfolded today, unraveled today with this air crash that happened. And Padmaja, I'm reminded of the times when all of us thought what's going to happen to Andhra Pradesh when YSR died, or what's going to happen to Congress or Madhya Pradesh when Madhav Rao Scindia died. Aircraft deaths of politicians have been something that this country has been witnessing. But yes, it's always set an earthquake in whichever state it happened.
And also Maharashtra in particular, you see the tall leaders who have passed away in an untimely fashion, whether it was Gopinath Munde, whether it was Pramod Mahajan, and now this, you know, of course, different parties. But for Ajit Pawar's passing, let's also tell our viewers what exactly happened. There were a total of 5 people on board, including the 2 pilots, Pawar security personnel, Pinky Mali, who was a cabin crew. All 5 of them died immediately. You know, now you have information coming in that such was the impact of the crash that eventually Ajit Pawar had to be identified. We'll get our colleagues, in fact, Radhika, Abhishek and Saurabh also for more on that, because everyone is now headed to Baramati. A while ago, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra along with Deputy Chief Minister Eknath Shinde also left for Baramati. A 3-day mourning has been declared. The tricolour is flying at half-mast in Mantralaya. The small aircraft took off from Mumbai at 8:10 a.m. and around 5 kilometers from the airport in Baramati. It crashed at 8:46 a.m. and we are now learning that it went around twice, Vasudha, and then eventually crashed. And a massive, look at the remnants of that. The remnants of the aircraft, you only have the tail with VR. That's the company that owns this aircraft. Only the tail now visible in one piece. Everything else burnt to an ember.
Absolutely. Padmaja, in the morning when we got this news, all of us were very, in some ways very anxious to know if Ajit Pawar is safe or not. And then, of course, tragically it unfolded and we got to know that he has also passed away. And now all roads lead to Baramati for a lot of VIPs. I'm told that a lot of BJP leaders and also some from the government will be going to Baramati, is what we understand, because this is an important ally of the BJP. He's the was the Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, a man who has held several portfolios, specifically finance, and he had a lot of political meetings lined up in Baramati. He was not going there for, personal work, and he's the person...
4 public meetings.
Yes, he had 4 public meetings, and this is immediately after his party did not perform that well, lost Baramati and lost PMC, of course, and Pimpri Chinchwad, and these are elections, the local body elections that he fought
despite the family coming together.
Absolutely.
And which is why the entire politics, and which is why you have this whole, insinuation now starting, saying they had sensed that something was amiss. This family was, had already united for the municipal elections, although the NCP was at pains to say that this does not in any way indicate what is going to happen later. All right, we've got more news coming in now, Vasudha. Moments before the crash, the plane contacted the air traffic control at Baramati at 8:18 a.m. The crew asked about the weather. It was told that winds are calm and the visibility is at 3,000 meters.
That's right. This was the plane's message to the air traffic controller at 8:18 a.m. is what we've been told. And the first approach, of course, said that the runway was not in sight and the go-around was executed. And the second approach was that runway initially was not visible. And this is just one of the last moments of communication. Padmaja, would that be right? And we have also told that the crew later reported runway in sight cleared to land runway. But like you said, we saw the plane circling several times before it made that tragic.
And it's just happening in a matter of seconds. Look at the timeline that we've put together for you here. 8:18 a.m. That's when the first contact was made by the plane with the air traffic control in Baramati. They asked for the weather and told that the winds were calm and the visibility at 3,000 meters. So initially it was said that it was foggy, it was low visibility, but now it seems that the visibility was at 3,000 meters. The first approach, the runway was not in sight and one go around was executed like we have been telling you since morning. And when the second approach, and that is when that 8:45 a.m. you see, and we put that image on your screen right now, you see the plane coming in at around 8:45. When the second approach was made, the runway initially was not visible, but the crew later said that the runway is in sight. Runway 11 at 8:43 a.m. They were cleared to land. They were told at 8:43 a.m. The plane was told, you've been given clearance, you can land on runway 11. At 8:44 a.m., the ATC sees flames near the threshold, and at 8:46, that is the time you can see on the CCTV footage, that big explosion happens. Abhishek is joining us live on this. Just help us decode all of this information now. The fact that the visibility was 3,000 meters, the fact that initially the runway wasn't visible and then they were given clearance to land on runway 11 at 8:43 a.m. How do we make sense of all of this information, Abhishek?
See, definitely, this is the information that has been received and the details of it are out right now, and definitely as we were discussing the same thing. The first approach was very much of landing was not clear, and the aircraft pilot were in touch with the air control system out there, and after getting the clearances for the second runway, and within that, imagine, it was 8:43 when they gave the clearance for the runway 11, and we have the CCTV footage where we can clearly see at 8:46 when the aircraft crashed. That 3 minutes, what happened, because they couldn't get any response back from the pilot, that after getting clearance of runway, what was the next movement, and they couldn't get the response, and that's where the crash took place, and it is clearly visible in the CCTV footage also. It was till 8:43, right from the start, 8:18 to 8:43, it was in the air control system. The discussions were still going on, but after 8:43, no response was there from the pilot, and within 3 minutes we see the crash happening. So this is what the latest update that we can share, and we have got from the air operating system over there, and how initially the first approach of landing did not got the clearance, and then after the second approach, when the clearance was given for runway 11, but when it was cleared for landing, that the last signal at 8:43, after which there was no signal, no comments from the pilot. And
It's Padmaja, the whole thing seems to have been over. Saurabh also joins us now. Saurabh, the ATC communication by the aircraft was at 8:18 a.m. and 8:44 a.m. is when the ATC actually saw flames near the threshold. How would you explain this?
Baramati is is an airfield that's like the press release says, it's an uncontrolled airfield, which means that it does not have ATC staff manning the air control tower like in other commercial airports, like for example say a Pune or any other airport which has commercial flights landing. It has around a 1700-meter runway, and what is very clear is that the aircraft VTSSK made contact with Baramati at 8:18, and then of course they were given the next call was at 30 nautical miles inbound to Baramati, and then they were given advice to descend in visual meteorological conditions at the pilot's discretion, which means that this is a visual approach, that the runway has to be in sight. It's not a system aided approach where airplanes have very advanced systems that guide the plane onto the runway. This is a visual approach at Baramati, and that was what was sort of advised to the plane. And then what we had been told is that the crew inquired about winds, visibility, and they were informed that the winds were calm. Visibility was around 3,000 meters, which means about 3-kilometer visibility, which is very normal, which is decent visibility again, if you look at it in terms of flying parlance. And then they were asked, to report runway in sight after a go-around, the first go-around. They initiated a go-around in the first approach, which means that they could not, sight the runway properly, and they decided not to land and decided to make a second approach to land. Now, after go-around, the aircraft was asked about its position, and the crew reported on final approach. Now, when the crew say final approach, which means that they've lined up with the runway, the runway is usually in sight, and and that basically it's the the final moments before landing, and that of course is something that the crew were asked to report runway in sight. Runway is currently not in sight. Will call when runway is in sight is what they said, and after a few seconds they reported that the runway is in sight. So this is the sequence. So which means this is all normal procedure. So far things are going normally. The aircraft was then cleared to land on runway 11. At 8:43 IST, however, they did not give a readback of the landing clearance. Now, cleared to, when the ATC gives you an instruction to the pilot usually repeats that instruction. For example, if the ATC says cleared to land, then the pilot will repeat that instruction so that there is no miscommunication. Again, a very common, essential practice in aviation. And this is, of course, but they did not do this readback. So that is the first anomaly. And then, of course, Next, the ATC saw flames around the threshold of the runway at 8:44 IST. This is barely a minute later. And the emergency services then rushed the crash site. So till about, there is, of course, this go-around. Now, go-arounds happen fairly often in aviation. It is a practice that's often initiated because sometimes you can't see the runway. Sometimes there's a runway incursion. Sometimes if the pilot feels that, the wind gust is too strong, whatever may be the reason, the pilots can choose to do a go-around. In this case, they did. And this was their second approach. And on second approach, things seem to be going normally right until the last minute. But the first anomaly that's being noticed is that they did not read back, which means that when, like I explained, when an ATC says clear to land, the pilot will always respond to ATC and repeat that exact
Saurabh, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but I also want to bring in Sanjay Lazar, aviation expert, who is joining us now. We have the first statement coming in from the DGCA. Sanjay Lazar, thank you very much for speaking to us. And it gives us now the first authoritative details of what happened. The aircraft initiated a go-around during its first approach to runway due to low visibility, reported at around 3,000 meters. On the second attempt, the crew confirmed the runway was in sight, but failed to provide a readback of the final landing clearance at 8:43 IST. Now, for lay people like us, we are looking at this information. We are seeing the images on air where relatively the sky seems to be clear. And I'm saying this only as a lay person. It doesn't seem to be particularly foggy. With this statement, help us make sense of this information.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Actually, this corresponds to what I heard. I actually live in Baramati district. It's been bright and sunny since morning. And really, I was on other channels saying it's so strange. I'm not too far away from the airport, maybe about 20 odd kilometers. So this was really unusual. But what we had heard from people at Baramati airport that the pilot did contact the ATC and said he did not have visibility. We also saw on flight radar that he'd done a go around. Okay. Now the press, PIB has reported that apparently the pilot said he could not sight the runway and he made a go around and then he came to, do a second landing and unfortunately there was no readback. So this.
Sorry, can you hear us? All right, we'll try and get back to Sanjay Lazar in just a bit, but very important points that he was making that, for a lay person, often it seems that the weather is clear, but there are all of these technicalities which somebody experiences on ground. And let me read out that statement now in its entirety while we try and reconnect it with Sanjay Lazar. Emergency services spotted flames near the threshold of runway 11 at 8:44 IST. Just 1 minute after the last clearance, the wreckage was found on the left side of the runway. Flight was commanded by a highly experienced pilot in command with over 15,000 flying hours and a valid medical certificate. The aircraft, manufactured in 2010, held an valid airworthiness review certificate till September 2026. This is the second major accident for Messrs. VSR Ventures in recent years, following a September 2023 crash that we on NDTV first reported of another Learjet 45 at Mumbai airport. So now at least we have the first official statement of what happened moments before the crash. A go-around was initiated during its first approach to runway 11 due to low visibility. Right. And on the second attempt, the crew confirmed the runway was in sight, but failed to provide a readback. Sanjay Lazar, I believe, is back with us. Go on, sir.
Yes. Yeah, like I said, it said, confirmed that they did see the runway. They did not provide a readback when the ATC connected with them, which also corresponds to a lot of eyewitnesses who say that they suddenly saw a ball of flame and before the aircraft hit the ground. So this is something, I do not want to speculate because it's a very sensitive matter. It involves the late Deputy CM. Also, that it's in the initial stages of the investigation. The DGCA people must have reached the site by now, as well as the AAIB. So once we get the black box, we'll be able to determine. But it's becoming
Please understand,
clear.
I know it's too early to ask that, and I know that what the information that we have right now also negates a lot of these earlier reports that the pilot was not able to spot the runway. In such a case, what do you think really happened, considering that the weather was also fine? What are the likely scenarios? I'm not asking you to speculate here, but what do you think could be those possible possibilities that could have happened here?
Well, I can only speculate. I cannot give you possibilities. I do believe it could have been a last minute, glitch that could have happened. other than that, we did hear reports of the aircraft veering, and this is from eyewitnesses, veering towards the right, away from the main runway and landing on the shoulder before the runway. So that's one possibility that I can think of. But why it happened and how it happened, it would be remiss of me to speculate. It's not appropriate at this point. And please excuse me, I will not, go deeper.
Can you just help us understand what it means when the statement says the crew confirmed the runway was in sight but failed to provide a readback of the final landing clearance? What exactly does it mean in normal English?
Yeah, well, like I think your earlier guest also said, when a ATC gives instructions, the pilot gives a readback. He repeats the same instruction back to show that he has followed it, received it, and is going to, abide by it. In this case, that readback did not come. So it obviously means something may have happened prior to that or at that point. Therefore, they did not hear a readback. And that is what the AAIB will correlate from the data recorder, the black box, and see at what time the incident actually occurred, what happened, and why there was no readback.
So the investigation team is already at the spot. What would be their processes? What do you think that their way of working would be, and what would be their primary investigation focus?
In any investigation, the first thing we noticed right from the get-go in the morning, the site has been compromised hugely. Of course, people tried to rescue the deceased passengers, assuming they were injured. So there's been a lot of activity on the site. But the investigators will first, of course, cordon off the site and secure a black box. Most important, isolate the bodies, which I saw some have already been done. Initial videos actually showed bare bodies of the dead, and that was really tragic to watch on some television channels. So that seems to be contained now. The police have taken control, and the investigators will start looking into that, pulling out vital pieces of evidence that they can use for the investigation. This also is to say that I do understand that from the press report, PIB report, the similar company had an incident in Mumbai airport a couple of years ago. This aircraft has had 5 instances in its history of accidents out of the 650 that are currently flying in the skies. So it's still a low percentage very low percentage of accidents. But it's concerning that, if there was an accident to the similar type of aircraft in Mumbai by the same operator a couple of years ago, why the AAIB has not looked at, and given a report by now. So that's something that we need to look at.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lazar, for joining us. So, Padmaja, those are excellent insights. And of course, like Mr. Lazar points out, that this is also not the time for speculations, and we'll have to wait for the investigation team to actually tell us what could have happened.
Absolutely. And the quick update now is that the last rites, the cremation of Ajit Pawar is likely to take place tomorrow. Yeah. You already have the Chief Minister who is on his way to Baramati. Sharad Pawar has already reached Baramati, as has Sunetra Pawar with her children. So the entire family is there in Baramati.
She's on her way. She's on her way.
Okay, she's on her way. She is, she's landed in Pune, and now they'll be taking a chopper from Pune to Baramati to reach the place, and the final rites will be carried out tomorrow. State honours, of course, he'll be cremated with full state honours. A 3-day mourning has already been declared. All state functions have been cancelled, and the tricolour is flying at half-mast. Let's go across now to Saurabh, who is joining us now. Remember, it is 5 people who perished in that crash that took place early today morning. Let's also remember the 2 pilots, the pilot and the co-pilot, both of them passed away, along with one aide of Ajit Pawar, as well as one cabin crew. You've got a huge number of people already, Saurabh, of the NCP who are gathered outside the family's residence in Baramati. And the kind of images that we saw today morning of leaders of the party, Rohit Pawar, Hasan Mushrif, Anil Deshmukh, people who have worked very, very closely with Ajit Pawar, breaking down on camera. All of 66 years old, taken far too early, and like we broke to you earlier, the same aircraft had crashed in 2023, and yet in 2026, Vasudha, the final report, the final accident report hasn't come out. It's been 3 years and no report in that crash that took place in a similar aircraft 3 years ago. So 2023, this aircraft had developed problems. A similar aircraft had developed problems, a Learjet, and a final report is still awaited.
Absolutely. Let's go across to Saurabh. Saurabh, the fact that, we have to wait for 3 years and in fact more to understand what happened in 2023, and now there's another tragedy that has unfolded and it's taken away precious lives. And of course, Devendra Fadnavis, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, has reached Baramati, and we are getting visuals and pictures of him reaching Baramati. We'll play them out for you, and those are the visuals of...
that's his chopper landing.
Yeah.
That's the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, has just reached Baramati. But it's stunning, the fact that this could be taken so lightly. 3 years and still the final accident report is not out. Saurabh, go on.
That's right. And in fact, this is something that many within the aviation fraternity have pointed out, that it takes ages and sometimes they just gather dust, that these reports don't come out, that there are no, corrective actions taken. And people wake up until when the next accident happens. That's something that, unfortunately, is how the bureaucratic, delays hold up reports and actions. But, like you were mentioning, it's not just Ajit Pawar, there's the crew. And I was just looking at, the information again that was put out by the PIB, the crew information. The pilot in charge is, of course, an ATPL holder. He's flown more than 15,000 hours. So very experienced pilot. And of course, the date of his last medical examination was 19/11/2025, valid up to 19/5/2026. And then, of course, the co-pilot is a commercial pilot's license CPL holder. She, of course, 1,500 hours. And, again, something, all qualified pilots. So obviously, what went wrong is a matter of investigation. But if you look at the sequence of events, there was a go-around, which means that they may have spotted something. They may have felt that there was a requirement for a go-around. Now, go-arounds by themselves are very common in aviation. Even commercial aircrafts do it. If there's sudden wind gusts, change in wind direction, runway incursion, it could be any reason. It could just be...
It could also be last-minute glitches, what Sanjay Lazar was also telling us, Saurabh. And, Tanushka joins us, and Tanushka has been covering aviation for us. Tanushka, the thing about aviation tragedies is that probe gets announced, investigation gets done, but there's never a final report to reflect on learnings. The same thing seemed to have happened in 2023 as well. There's no final probe report yet. We don't know what went wrong in 2023 with the same aircraft that crashed today and took away the lives of 5 people. What happened? Why did it take 3 years for the probe, and why is there no report yet?
Precisely, these are questions that we still have in our minds with respect to the same aircraft, Learjet 45XR, that had crashed back in 2023, as you were mentioning, and this is the same aircraft that has crashed today, leading to the demise of Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar. Now, let us first look at the sequence of events, the timeline. So, 8:10 a.m. this morning is when this flight takes off from Mumbai Airport. And thereafter, 8:30 a.m. is the first landing attempt at Baramati, which fails, likely due to poor visibility. This is something that the pilot also makes very clear to the air traffic control. He warns that there is poor visibility before attempting landing. So after this, there is the second go-around. That is, the aircraft was cleared to land on runway 11 at 8:34 a.m. However, again, they did not get a readback of the landing clearance, as in the ATC did not get a feedback with respect to the landing happening or not. Thereafter, 8:42, second approach for landing happens. 8:45, aircraft disappears from the radar, and after that, 8:40, just moments later, it's literally seconds later, that the ATC saw flames around the threshold of runway 11, and emergency services were rushed onto the site. So this is the exact sequence of events that we have gotten. We do understand that this aircraft has been cleared, has certificate of airworthiness, has certificate of registration as well, but even then this went ahead and happened, and we're of course awaiting a final report from the previous crash as well. And on this crash, Of course, it remains to be seen what really went down, but the pilot did alert the ATC, air traffic control, about the poor visibility while trying to land at the Baramati airport. Back to you.
Anushka for joining us. Devendra Fadnavis, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, has already joined. Civil Aviation Minister Ramo Naidu, meanwhile, has spoken, and this is what he has said.
So, पहले तो मैं कहना चाहूँगा कि I'm very deeply saddened by the incident, the accident that has happened. In fact, my heart is still very, very heavy with sorrow. और जैसे ही सुबह पता चला, अभी डाइजेस्ट करने में ही बहुत दिक्कत हो रही है कि अजीत दादा अभी हमारे साथ नहीं है। और अजीत दादा के साथ 4 और लोग भी थे प्लेन में। उन सारे परिवारों को अपने कॉन्डोलेंसेस देता हूँ। 2 पायलट थे, क्रू थे और PSO भी थे उनके साथ। और अजीत दादा से जैसे आपने बोला, हमारी भी काफ़ी मुलाकातें रही हैं पिछले 18 महीने जब से मैं मंत्री बना हूँ। और एक यंग मिनिस्टर होने के नाते वो काफ़ी गाइडेंस भी हमें देते थे। और काफ़ी बार महाराष्ट्र की चर्चा जब होती थी और मैं और माहौल भाई हम दोनों भी जब साथ में मिलते थे तो काफ़ी अच्छी गाइडेंस, क्योंकि उनका जो एक्सपीरियंस रहा है पब्लिक सर्विस में और ख़ास तौर पर जिस ग्रास रूट लेवल पे पब्लिक के साथ, खासकर गरीब लोगों के साथ जिस तरह वो खड़े रहे और उनके साथ जो उन्होंने काम किया, तो ये केवल हमारे लिए नहीं बल्कि पूरे महाराष्ट्र के लिए ये एक बहुत बड़ी लॉस है और इर्रिपेरेबल लॉस है, इर्रिप्लेसेबल लॉस भी है। काफ़ी बार हमने जब उनसे बात करी तो हमें भी वो अनुभव मिला कि कितना वो प्रैक्टिकलिटी से और ग्राउंड रियलिटी से जुड़े हुए नेता हैं। उस तरह के नेता भी आजकल मिलना बहुत मुश्किल है और महाराष्ट्र के लिए जिस तरह उन्होंने काम किया है वो हम सबके लिए आदर्शनीय रहेगा। और ख़ासकर अभी जो एक्सीडेंट जो हुआ है उसका जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन उसको भी हमने शुरू कर दिया है। तुरंत DGCA और AIB की टीम भी आई है और जो प्रिलिमिनरी इन्वेस्टिगेशन या प्रिलिमिनरी जो समाचार हमें मिला है उसमें इतनी जानकारी थी कि जब वो लैंड करना चाहते थे सुबह करीब 8:48 AM के आसपास, तो उस समय विजिबिलिटी थोड़ा पुअर था उधर। और जब ATC बारामती से उनका जो कांटेक्ट हो रहा था फ्लाइट के लिए पायलट से, तो ATC वालों ने पूछा कि क्या रनवे साइट में है, तो उनके तरफ से आया कि रनवे साइट में अभी नहीं है। तो उसके बाद उन्होंने एक गो अराउंड भी किया। गो अराउंड करने के बाद फिर से एक बार कोशिश करी कि हमारे ATC से जो बारामती में जो FTO हैंडल्ड ATC है उनसे वार्तालाप चल रही थी। तो उस समय जब दोबारा लैंड करने आए तब भी उनसे पूछा गया था कि विजिबिलिटी है कि नहीं रनवे का। तो उसके बाद पहले तो उनका समाधान नहीं है, फिर उसके बाद आया कि विजिबिलिटी है। तो लैंडिंग क्लियरेंस जैसी ATC ने दिया उसके बाद तुरंत देखा गया कि ये एक्सीडेंट हुआ है। बहुत दुखद घटना है, तो इसके ऊपर और जानकारी हमें मिलनी चाहिए। इन्वेस्टिगेशन पूरी तरह से ट्रांसपेरेंट और अकाउंटेबल वे में हम करेंगे। बट उससे पहले तो मैं इतना कहना चाहूँगा कि ये बात बोलना कि अजीत दादा अब नहीं रहे, उसके लिए बहुत 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 दुख होता है। और मैं उनके जो प्यार करने वाले लोग हैं, कार्यकर्ता हैं और उनके परिवार के लोग हैं, सबके प्रति कंडोलेंसेस व्यक्त करता हूँ।
Those visuals of Sunetra Pawar, the wife of Ajit Pawar, with the family members of the Pawar family, and also Supriya Sule, the MP of Baramati and the cousin of Ajit Pawar. It was just so
incredibly sad, and it was just, it has just been a month where the entire family was together, first releasing the manifesto of the party. Before that, they were together in Baramati for a function that had taken place. Before that, they were in Delhi. So they all came together, and to think that for such a young leader, and it's just 66 years of age, considering that his uncle, even in his 80s, is still politically active. Here is somebody, and I think it was in 2024 when Devendra Fadnavis inside the assembly had made that speech, and laughingly he had said कि अजीत दादा अभी तो आप मुख्यमंत्री भी बनेंगे एक दिन, आप उसकी चिंता मत कीजिए, आप एक जन नेता हैं. And to think that such a life should be cut short so suddenly and in just a matter, Vasudha, of 45 minutes. That's all it has taken. And now piecing together from what we have heard from the Civil Aviation Minister, from the DGCA, and I want to again focus on what has the sequence of events that has been put out by the DGCA. It really gives you a fix on what happened in those 45 minutes. Baramati is an uncontrolled airfield, and traffic information is provided by the instructors, pilots from the flying training organizations in Baramati as per the statement of the person manning the ATC. Following are the sequence of events. At 8:18 IST, the aircraft first came in contact with Baramati. The aircraft's next call was at 30 nm inbound to Baramati, and they were released by Pune approach. They were advised to descend in visual meteorological conditions at pilot's discretion. The crew inquired about the winds, and let's get Saurabh in on this. The crew inquired about the winds and visibility. They were informed that the winds were calm. The visibility was around 3,000 meters. Next, the aircraft reported on the final approach on runway 11. The runway was not in sight. They initiated a go-around in the first approach. The aircraft was asked about its position, and the crew reported on final approach of runway 11. The aircraft was cleared to land on the runway 11 at 8:43 IST, and that really is critical. From 8:10 a.m. when they took off, 8:43 IST, they were given a clearance, and at 8:46 we see the aircraft crashing. Matter of only 3 minutes, Saurabh, which really is critical in this tragedy. 8:43 to 8:46.
If you go through the sequence of events that is provided by the DGCA, again, like I've been saying, a go-around is pretty common in aviation. It's nothing that is a cause of concern. It is often taken as a safety measure. Pilots choose to go around as a safety measure. Even if they can land, they will choose to go around because there could be any, it could be any reason. It could be runway incursion, it could be wind, it could be wind direction, it could be, just about anything, or it could be a glitch or anything. So they did take a go around, but then on also things seemed normal because they were in touch with the ATC. In fact, till the time that they don't, they don't read back the instructions once, and like, I was explaining, every time there's a communication between an ATC and a pilot, the pilot always reads back the instruction from the ATC. That is confirmation that the information has been heard correctly, the instruction has been heard correctly, and the instruction is being acted upon. This is very important.
We're facing a bit of an issue with your audio over there, Saurabh. We'll really try and fix this. Remember, Saurabh, our entire team is on its way to Baramati, so we are reporting there. They are rushing to the spot as well because the entire family, the action has shifted there. But another important point that we want to point out, if, Tanushka can come in on this, the fact that the statement also mentions that the wreckage of the aircraft is located on the left side of the runway, abeam threshold RW11. What do you make of this bit of information, that the wreckage of the aircraft is located on the left side of the runway, abeam threshold RW11? Tanushka.
Well, this could have, much to do with the visibility, the poor visibility in that, area of the runway. Runway 11 is what we're talking about, and we do understand that the length of the runway was also not much. This is not your commercial airport that we're talking about, Baramati Airport, where this crash happened. So this definitely means that when the pilot indeed was warning about poor visibility before attempting a landing is, the last chain of communication also that went by to the air traffic control. And what we can also gauge from this is what you were also mentioning, that 3-minute gap between 8:43 and 8:46 is crucial also because there was no callback from the pilot to the air traffic control. The official statement that we also have is that the pilot did not give a readback of the landing clearance. That means after receiving the landing clearance from the air traffic control, the pilot is supposed to, concur with that and, somewhat give a sort of agreement that they have delivered they have received the message rather, but that chain of communication is missing. And we also understand that thereafter at 8:45 a.m. the aircraft disappears from the radar, and this is when the ATC see the flames rising up from runway 11.
crucial 40 minutes in which the entire tragedy unfolded, Padmaja. It's really heartbreaking. Let's just also speak about the visuals there. This is Sunitra Pawar and, of course, Supriya Sule. Both of them part of the same family. Both of them fought against each other for Baramati 2024 Lok Sabha elections. Sunitra Pawar was defeated. She later became the Rajya Sabha MP, and Supriya Sule there with another person of Pawar family. And, of course, Praful Patel has also reached, is what we understand. He's a senior NCP leader close to both Sharad Pawar and Ajit Pawar. So clearly a tough time for the entire family, for the party. Let me bring in Abhishek here. Abhishek, Ajit Pawar was seen as the Dada of Baramati, somebody who was perpetually the Deputy Chief Minister, the 6th time Deputy Chief Minister, who was very ambitious, but at the same time could never make it to the Chief Minister's chair. How is Maharashtra looking at this tragedy? How are people feeling about what happened today?
Definitely, he was the longest serving Deputy Chief Minister, and earlier also I was pointing it out, whether it was Mahavikas Aghadi where he was the Deputy Chief Minister or Mahayuti, he never compromised on his values, on his ideology, secular ideology that he belongs to, and that was also what got witnessed while contesting municipal corporation elections. Pune, Pimpri Chinchwad, he didn't align with the BJP. At the same time, in Mumbai also, he has taken a strong stand to contest the election. Though he was a part of Mahayuti, these are the points. And in fact, important to note out here, he had a resemblance with the word Dada. Like Baramati, Maharashtra. In fact, we as a political correspondents, we used to sit with him, we used to talk to him, we used to, get information from him. Dada, what is happening now? What is the next step regarding this? When will the money of Ladki Behan come? These are the moments that we have shared with him. And he was very, outspoken and a kind of a leader which has a mass connect. And remember how the growth has been, Earlier, we have seen the politics where he was shadowed by Sharad Pawar. But when he took a decision, he rebelled, the party got a split. Then there was not good performance in Lok Sabha, but he aggressively campaigned during assembly elections. And with that pink jacket, Dada wearing pink jacket definitely was fear to his own alliance partners also. If you understand that time of campaign, the Ladki Behan, the sisters of Maharashtra relate to him, and it was, definitely the brainchild, I would say, of Ajit Pawar himself, how to gather finance to sustain this Ladki Behan scheme, which was a game changer for Mahayuti in assembly election.
Quickly, before I go to others, Saurabh, we are told that the cremation is likely to be held tomorrow. And I was speaking to my source, and he says family ne abhi tak body ko dekha nahi hai. So, the timing of the cremation is not yet, of course, decided. There's a tragedy that the family is trying to grapple with. Saurabh, help us understand, NCP leaders have started arriving there. How do you see this tragedy impacting the future of NCP?
Well, this is something that political observers in the state are very keenly watching. Now, in the last civic body elections, we saw Pune and Pimpri Chinchwad slip away from the NCP. Sharad Pawar is in his 80s. He's indicated many times that he wants to move away from active politics. Ajit Pawar was clearly, seen as someone who was running the NCP. In fact, even after the split, the NCP symbol, etc., went to Ajit Pawar. So, in a sense, while Supriya Sule is the MP from Baramati, Ajit Pawar was more in the sort of in charge of things in terms of NCP. So, it is a huge vacuum. First, having lost in bastions like Pune and Pimpri Chinchwad, and then, of course, to lose Ajit Pawar at this critical juncture. For the Pawar family, it does matter. Ajit Pawar, we've seen the family ties. In fact, even I remember clearly in the first time around when Ajit Pawar early in the morning, and then there was
significant, if you remember, the entire fight in Baramati they made it a point, Vasudha, to never level personal allegations against each other. You know, even when Sunetra Pawar was, you know, followed around by reporters, Supriya Sule, they were very clear that, look, ultimately, she is my sister-in-law. वो मेरी भाभी है. So there was never any personal comments or any underhand jibes. Yes, it was a very, very high-octane campaign for both sides. It was about making a point that we are politically relevant over here, but neither side, even after the results, ever came out.
Even off the record conversations, Padmaja, both Sunetra and Supriya would make sure that they talk about the family in a lot of glory, and we would think that, yeah, there's, you know, what you see is not what you...
Yeah, and you would think that they would fight each other, you know, to try and grasp the control. But no, it was very clear that, look, politically we are trying to make a point and saying this is a fight for making your relevance felt in this particular seat. But at no point are we going to, as a family, make any underhand allegations or cast any aspersions. So they were like this. And I remember the last time when there was, you know, the family was sharing a stage, there were plenty of, you know, and it was a non-political function. And they said, look,
because Sharad Pawar's birthday, 80th birthday, everybody got together, and it was Supriya Sule and, of course, Ajit Pawar.
And speaking of Sharad Pawar, that's the first image. You know, we saw him earlier at the airstrip, and now the first image of Sharad Pawar, he has reached the hospital there, where in the morgue. And also look at the tragedy. You know, one, there is an untimely death. You have somebody really young taken away. And then in a tragedy like this, where the last identification was done with the help of a wristwatch, because, you know, you had like this huge, we saw Rohit Pawar in the morning. I mean, inconsolable. What do you expect? I mean, a young person, a young politician, he's your, you know, he's your cousin brother, he's your nephew, he's your uncle, and it's unimaginable. I mean, you know, Vasudha, sitting here right now, I don't think any of us can even claim to put ourselves in the shoes of these people. The politics is one side.
Yeah.
Nobody would at this point be thinking, oh, what will happen to Baramati? Yeah. What will happen to the deputy CM post?
And this is a family that has fought elections with each other. Like Yogendra Pawar was defeated by Ajit Pawar. He's his own nephew. Parth Pawar lost his election. So Netra and Supriya fought this election for Baramati. And then you don't really see them being bitter about each other. And they celebrate family functions, be it weddings or birthdays. But I think for Sharad Pawar, this is going to be a very, I think it's going to be a heart-wrenching moment for him, because Ajit Pawar is somebody that he shares an extremely close relationship with. Of course, it's gotten off and on, you know, in the last few years. But remember, it was Ajit Pawar who vacated his seat from Baramati as an MP when Sharad Pawar became a minister at the central cabinet. So there's a long journey that both of these men share. And in 2019, I remember when Parth Pawar contested, Sharad Pawar did not contest, right? So I think
and Yogendra Pawar also, when he contested against Ajit Pawar and lost, there was this one time they came face to face and Ajit Pawar said, Chacha to chacha hi hai.
Exactly.
So, you know, on the outside, you might be thinking, my God, here is a family at war with each other. But no, they were absolutely clear. Politics and parivar are to be kept very separate from each other, because family does come first. I think in terms of political families, if there's one family that has embodied it, it is the Pawar
Ajit Pawar accepting that it was a mistake to field his wife against his cousin. Yeah. So, you know, not many people do that in politics, publicly accept a mistake that they did or something that hurt their family.
But, all right, so we have these images now. That's Rohit Pawar. That's Rohit Pawar on the top hand screen, top left of your screen.
He's the other nephew of Sharad Pawar, so, and also is seen as one of the inheritors of his legacy. He's, of course...
Again, somebody who's supposed to be, you know, very rough and ready. Yes. He is out there. So, Rohit Pawar, Sunetra Pawar, and Supriya Sule, or the entire family now is reaching Baramati one by one. But Sharad Pawar in particular, and you know, on the one side is this family tragedy, on the other is the political fallout, and then the big question, what went wrong? And at the center of it all is the aviation company which owns that aircraft. Similar problem had been faced in a similar aircraft, a Learjet in 2026 as well, like we broke to you on NDTV. The final accident report in that 2026 accident still hasn't been made. So you had an interim report, but a final accident report is still not out there. Now, we spoke to the owner of the aviation company. Here's what he told us.
उसमें ना तो आप थे ना मैं था, कोई नहीं था. वो पायलट का डिसीजन था he made an approach from runway 29 and then he carried out a missed approach, after which again he tried to make an attempt from runway 11. This is what I also have no contact with the pilots. They are not there. It is a very unfortunate incident. We are very sad about it. We are trying to first be with the family, solidly with the family who have lost their next of kins. It's a very unfortunate incident. Primarily, it appears that, the pilot could not see the runway, and that's why he would have carried out the misapproach.
And the investigation team has already reached the office of VSR Ventures. Aditya Raj Kaul joining us live from there, and I believe that they have already started going through the documentation. Take it away, Aditya.
Well, that's right. We're reporting live from the VSR Aviation headquarters in Delhi. This is right next to the Delhi International Airport. This is the company that really owns that aircraft, which led to that unfortunate incident this morning, the crash in which, unfortunately, the Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar was killed. We do not know the exact reason of the crash. We do not know whether that was an accident or a visibility issue. But what I can tell you is that investigators have already reached the headquarters here. There are multiple teams inside. In fact, just a few minutes ago, there were more officials from the MHA that have arrived here. Now, the DGCA will be investigating this threadbare, trying to understand the contents of the black box that are key, where the last communication of the pilot would be understood. But just to give you a glimpse of where I am and what's happening right now, this right behind me, my video journalist Sushil Rathi is showing you, is the headquarters of the VSR Aviations, the owners of this particular aircraft. You can see that glass panel entrance. That's where the officials are, a little inside that in the headquarters. We have the owner of this particular company, VK Singh, who is also speaking to the officials right now. What we have witnessed over the last couple of hours is that multiple documents, several documents from the basement of this company have been brought into the first floor and the ground floor, and multiple officials and multiple teams of investigators are now trying to study the documentation of the company, the documentation and the maintenance records of that particular aircraft, trying to establish whether there was some kind of a fault or, is there something wrong in the records. So that needs to be taken care of threadbare. And that's what the DGCA will be doing, not just today, over the next few days as well. Apart from the documentation, we heard VK Singh, the owner of this company, speak about the details. He said that there was a visibility issue, but that was also an assumed guess from him. He was also not clear whether there was some kind of a other reason that was involved in this particular unfortunate crash in Baramati. But the latest that I can tell you that the investigations have begun. Immediately after the crash, there are multiple teams right behind me investigating this. We do not know whether there will be some kind of an action that will be taken. But as of now, the investigations continue to understand whether this was merely an accident or there was some kind of a fault, because there seems to be an earlier accident where, of course, investigations are being carried forward right now. But whether there was some kind of a fault in the landing gear or a visibility issue will be clear only after the investigations end.
Investigators will also look at weather conditions and also the communication the crew had and the systems in the aircraft. Do we have any clue as to if the documentation was proper in this case, in the case of this company, if the clearances had come in, if there was any problem on that end?
Well, on his part, the owner, VK Singh, has been very categorical. He said that on his part and on the part of the company, there wasn't any wrongdoing. They had followed all the norms. There were documentations in place. There was maintenance that was being carried forward. And obviously, the Mumbai airport and the DGCA there have very strict norms. No aircrafts, be it private aircrafts or commercial aircrafts, are allowed to fly if they do not abide by the strict guidelines of the DGCA and the airport authority. So in this case as well, this was being commercially, of course, used as a private aircraft, which took off a little after 8 a.m. this morning. But within the next 1 hour, a tragedy had struck Maharashtra, with the Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar being killed, apart from 4 others in that aircraft, which included the pilot, the crew and the staff of the Deputy Chief Minister. As I said, the investigations will focus on multiple aspects. One, what is the content of the black box? That is the key. to it, because that will be the last communication. The ATC did try to communicate with the pilots, but there wasn't much that came out on the landing, because there were multiple attempts that were made for the landing of this particular aircraft. As of now, right behind me, the investigations are studying the entire documentation of the company, all their aircrafts, but particularly this particular Learjet aircraft, to study whether there was any kind of a wrongdoing or not. And right behind me, you can see more documents being taken inside this particular location. So there is hectic activity that carries on. There are multiple officials right behind me at the VSR Aviation office. They are trying to study the pattern. They are also communicating with the owner of this company, VK Singh, to ask him and quiz him on this particular aircraft, and also the documents associated with it, the maintenance that was carried forward, the kind of usage of this aircraft that happened in Delhi, Bombay or other locations. So perhaps in the next few days there would be more clarity from the DGCA as to what turn of events really happened this morning, and what would be the conclusive investigation when it comes to this particular tragedy in Baramati.
All right, and in fact, while this investigation continues, the initial movements have already started. A DGCA team over there, the documents being gone through by the crash investigation team. What does give a lot of clues is the spot of the accident, and NDTV is the first team to have reached the spot in Baramati, where at least 5 to 6 kilometers away from that main airstrip, the wreckage still lies. Here's a ground report.
महाराष्ट्र के उप मुख्यमंत्री अजीत पवार का प्लेन आज सुबह क्रैश हो गया। जिस जगह प्लेन क्रैश हुआ उस जगह में हूं, आप देख रहे हो, यही वो प्लेन है जहां गहरी खाड़ी में वो गिरा है, और अभी भी इसमें जो भी कुछ आग है वो बुझाने की कोशिश की जा रही है। गोजुबावी नाम का गांव है, इस गांव की ट्रैक के बाजू में ही लगभग काफी नीचे यह प्लेन गिरा हुआ नजर आ रहा है। इस प्लेन में अजीत पवार के साथ 5 लोग थे और इस सभी की इस हादसे में मौत हो चुकी है। आज अजीत पवार बारामती का दौरा कर रहे थे। बारामती के जिला परिषद के चुनाव अभी लगे हैं और इस चुनाव के लिए अजीत पवार आज प्रचार सभा लेने वाले थे, लोगों को संबोधन करने वाले थे। उससे पहले ही आज सुबह 8:50 पर ये हादसा हुआ। ये हादसा इतना भयानक था कि प्लेन के अंदर सभी लोग पूरी तरह से जल चुके थे। अजीत पवार जी के हाथ में जो घड़ी थी उससे उनकी पहचान की गई है। अभी भी हम देख रहे हैं जो टूटा हुआ प्लेन यहाँ गिरा है, उसका इंजन जो है वो पूरी साइड पे गिरा है। बाकी अलग कुछ पार्ट है वो इधर उधर गिरे हैं, बाकी कुछ कागजात है वो सब इधर उधर गिरे हैं, और अभी भी इसमें थोड़ी सी आग है वो बुझाने की कोशिश अब यहाँ की जा रही है।
Well, with that, it's time for a short break. More news and updates on the other side.